Welcome everyone to our September Parks Board meeting. Let's see the appeal. Do you have the appeal? The appeals of decision? Sorry, Janet. I will read the appeal of decisions. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. I am going to go out of order to new business item 091802. Board to affirm appointment of Ms. Jill Spearing as a member of the Parks Board representing Metro School Board effective August 14th, 2018. Ms. Spearing's term will expire on June 20th, 2019. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. Metro Council, consideration of minutes. If everyone's read the minutes, are there any changes?
No, so moved.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are carried. Metro Council referrals? We have lots today, I think.
Councilmember Berkeley Allen, I saw in the hallway, just to acknowledge her. And Councilman John Cooper is here as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We will move to old business. Let me go out of order. Let's go to 081804. This was referred to the Acquisition Committee prior to this meeting. Staff requests board approval to accept a land donation of approximately 8 acres located at 6030 Cloverland Drive for future neighborhood park and expansion of 7 Mile Creek Greenway. Acquisition Committee report.
The Acquisition Committee met and recommends approval.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the Acquisitions Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Now we'll move back to 071802. Belmont University requests board approval of Amendment 3 to the existing lease agreement between Metro Government through Metro Parks with Belmont University for property improvement of the addition of an 80 by 135-foot indoor batting facility to be constructed in a different location at E.S. Rose Park than previously approved. And also I'll read the next order of old business, 071803, representatives of Edge Hill Neighborhood Coalition request permission to address the board in regard to the proposed amendment submitted by Belmont University to add an indoor batting facility at E.S. Rose Park. We're going to take this in a certain order. I'm going to ask that our staff give us an overview of exactly where we are and what we're deciding on today. And then we're going to allow 3 members, one from Belmont, one from the neighborhood, or 3 people of 3 minutes each to address us. So if we could have the staff give us an overview of exactly where we are.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to put this item into context, what you are voting on today or taking up for consideration was deferred from the July 2018 Parks Board meeting at which this item was presented, and we heard from members of from both Belmont and the Edge Hill Neighborhood Coalition, both for and against this particular project. The this amendment that has been proposed is being proposed by Councilman Colby Sledge. It would nullify, if approved, it would nullify Amendment 2 to the existing property improvement and lease agreement between Metro Government and Belmont, and it requests to build, that has already been approved, I should say that Metro Parks, the Parks Board, and Metro Council previously approved in 2017, May of 2017, Amendment 2, which authorizes Belmont University to build, construct a batting facility. There was some community concern after that amendment was passed, community concern expressed. Our staff, as well as the councilman and community members, met. There was some compromise during the discussion, and a change of the location of the facility, proposed change, was recommended. That is included in the amendment. Previously in the amendment, an additional $5,000 was to be contributed, and I said additional, $5,000 to the annual contribution to the parent-teacher organizations from the adjacent schools, and also to the Parks Department. So that was in the amendment. There have been subsequent conversations with the council person, the community members and community groups in Belmont, and I think they will voice their concerns and positions today, but that is what is before you today. You have a copy of the proposed amendment in your packet for review. And so with that, we can hear from.
Thank you for the overview. We're going to be strict on the time, so who would like to come from Belmont first? State your name, please, and we're at 3 minutes. And
Yes,
Janitor, you have the timer? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Joyce Searcy, Director of Community Relations at Belmont, and a 17-year resident of Edge Hill. In May 2011, Belmont University, in collaboration with Metro Parks, Metro Schools, churches, and community representatives, planned and cut the ribbon on a state-of-the-art E.S. Rose Park sports complex that cost over $9.7 million. Since that time, as of June 2017, Belmont has paid almost $445,000 in lease payments, $719,000 for maintenance, and provided over $1.2 million in scholarships. So not including paying 69% of utilities, Belmont has now paid over $14.5 million for a property owned by Metro Parks and used by Parks community in Belmont. 1.5 years ago, Parks notified Belmont of the need to demolish the batting facility built and paid for by Belmont at Greer Stadium. This board and Metro Council passed an amendment authorizing construction of a new indoor batting facility on the north side of Rose Park. Then Councilmember Sledge requested we meet with neighbors who had concerns. Belmont complied, and after 6 meetings with Metro Community Coalition and community representatives, a more acceptable site was selected on the south side. In addition, Belmont will also fund a $28,000 annual grant for Saturday openings for Easley so the community can take full advantage of shared use. We have a great working relationship with Metro Parks and are confident in John Holmes and his staff's ability to manage use of the batting facility with community groups. Other Edge Hill residents and stakeholders have begun to discuss how we together can ensure the facility would benefit even more Edge Hill youth. Here today are Brenda Marr, President of Edge Hill Apartments Residents Association, Metro Schools, and Reviving Baseball Inner City's Tony Majors, Pastor John Faison, Watson Grove, Pastor Harmon Stockdale, Kane Avenue Baptist, Salama CEO Dewana Wade, Rose Park Middle School Principal Varmy Vassar, Carter Lawrence Principal Sharlita Sanders, and former council member Ronnie Greer, who played baseball at Rose Park and whose group, The Boys, has pledged to help too. Former council member Ludi Wallace, under whose leadership the complex was built, has sent a letter of support. Together with Metro Parks, Metro Schools, churches, and neighborhood, we will plan an Edge Hill extended learning program where Belmont students will tutor in math, science, and English. RBI will implement the baseball program, Saturday sports, and enrichment program so participants can learn about Edge Hill's rich history, including Negro League players. Churches will also recruit players and volunteers. This is the vision. When ONE's Reverend Bill Barnes was at his last accountability meeting for use of Lease funds, he acknowledged, "I didn't think this would work." And then he remarked, "Now I'm a believer." Like Reverend Barnes, over time, we can prove once again that if we work together for a shared vision that especially benefits our children, the results can only be a win-win-win for parks, schools, community, and Belmont. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing.
Minutes ran out. Good morning, everybody. I'm Brenda Morrow. I'm the president of the Edge Hill Apartments Resident Association. I also act as director of Organized Neighbors Edge Hill and the director of the United Way Family Resource Center in Edge Hill. I came this morning because I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of having an abandoned facility, especially there in close proximity of our children. When we first, the idea of this sportsplex 11 years ago came about, there was a lot of opposition, but the one thing that the residents said was, "Miss Brenda, schedule a meeting. We want to talk about the pros and cons and what we can do to help it benefit the residents." We met with Dr. Rogers and Dr. West. On one occasion, Doc Fisher came, but we talked about what children and residents could benefit from these a partnership. Out of that partnership, the residents in the community have sponsored different sports activities. We've reserved the fields on numerous occasions for our Halloween projects and for annual sports day there in the community. The thing that really touches me is the fact that children, residents' children that are interested in baseball, they are, I don't know how to say it, but it's like they're overwhelmed when they talk about baseball and how to deal with baseball. My problem is when we recruit kids, let me take you back, last year, we had a baseball sign-up at the Organized Neighbors of Edge Hill. At that sign-up, we had over 250 residents come up through there in the front yard. We had a barbecue pit. We had 4 different scrimmage games, well, right there in the vicinity, in the front yard. And what really moved me was the fact that my great-granddaughter was actually conversing with a little Hispanic kid, because in school she was learning, she was just in the 1st grade, and she was learning to speak Spanish, and she was learning Chinese. And I said, this is awesome to take a picture of kids from different nationalities working together, trying to play baseball. So that's one of the things that really moves me, is the ability for kids to come together and learn about each other and their different cultures and stuff like that. But this year, we had over 32 kids, because back in the day when we started this partnership, they said reservations come first. So we reserved the softball field for this summer. And we had over 32 kids up there this summer, so I thought that was so cool. Is my time up? All right, my time is up, y'all. But bottom line is, we shouldn't prohibit something from being there that's going to benefit the kids that live in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there one more representative from Belmont who would like to speak?
Hello, Council. I am Romy Vass. I'm the principal at Rose Park, Magna Middle. I can speak wholeheartedly how this facility has already and currently benefiting our students. We use the facility for recess. We use it for, we have a soccer team, and they use it for soccer. We also have a track team which uses it for practice as well. And I'll be honest with you, it's a great marketing tool for our parents when we are doing tours. The parents are definitely interested when we talk to them about having access to that facility. So this partnership with Belmont and the community has been great. And the thought of having the potential of adding a batting facility and possibly even trying to pull in a baseball team myself as a school, that only helps to benefit not only our kids at the school, but even more so the community kids. I think this would be a great opportunity for the kids to just have another avenue to really explore. We always talk about football, we talk about basketball, things of that nature, but when you can get kids involved into a sport like baseball, I think it's whenever you can have, whenever that opportunity presents itself, I think we should take it. I know that the values that students and our other community members can really gain when you think about having a team sport like baseball, the things that they can learn, the kids, in terms of the life skills such as teamwork, the life skills such as hard work. I think adding this facility would be a great opportunity for the community as a whole, and I know for my school community it would definitely add value. So I would definitely say I think this would be a great opportunity for us, and I think we should take a hold of it and give our kids as many opportunities as possible to engage in a facility such as this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any representatives of the Edge Hill Neighborhood Coalition that would like to speak here?
Yes.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. To adapt a description of the...
Please state your name.
Oh, sorry. Joel Dark, 1027 15th Avenue South. To adapt a description of the Cloud Hill development offered by Mayor Briley in March and quoted by Chairperson Anderson in a fine Tennessean op-ed in April, a Belmont University athletics building, and I think we do have to be clear that this is a university building with a batting facility in it, is a good idea proposed for the wrong location. University buildings should be, and almost always are, built on university campuses, not on the scarce public land of a rapidly growing neighborhood in the urban core of Nashville. Belmont is growing, and Belmont's campus is growing. Edge Hill is growing even more rapidly, but Rose Park is not growing. It is staying the same size. And that was, I think, part of Mr. Anderson's observation about urban core parkland. The idea of adding a university building to a Nashville park cannot withstand public scrutiny. And again, I would emphasize university building, not a batting cage. And it's clearly not something that a majority of the Metro Council would have voted for last year if they had known what it was. Speaking before the Parks Board in July, Councilmember Allen, whose public service I deeply respect, said that she had sponsored the proposal based on the fundamental misunderstanding that it was a batting cage. Quote, "When we voted batting cage, I was thinking fence, not two-story building. So we let some information not be known ahead of time because it simply wasn't clear to us," unquote. I appreciate Councilmember Allen's frank and public acknowledgement of this mistake, as other council members have also done both in public and in private. The opposite of what Councilmember Allen describes is transparency. Problems of transparency emerge almost automatically, even if only through neglect, when private interests are prioritized over the public good. And these problems have unfortunately continued up to the present in the case of Belmont's proposed athletics building. As you know, a member of the Edge Hill Coalition only discovered Belmont's role in the drafting of the current lease amendment by turning on Microsoft Word's track changes feature. Community meetings would have completely avoided these problems of transparency both last year and this year. Edge Hill residents know that these are possible from our entirely positive experiences with the Parks Department in discussing and shaping the future of Tony Rose Park and in Ms. Hughes' call for a community meeting committed to by Councilmember Sledge at the July Parks Board meeting. The title of the op-ed from Mr. Anderson in the Tennessean was that the future for Greer Stadium as parkland is bright. If there is a bright future for Rose Park as parkland, you will find no better partners than the hundreds of friends of the park who have signed petitions in opposition to the building.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Obviously, I'm not a member of the Edge Hill community, but I grew up on Hawkins Street, went to Carter Lawrence for 12 years, and went to Cameron for 3 years.
State your name, please.
Kwame Lillard. I represent the African American Cultural Alliance. We dip our hands in everything we think is trying to oppress a black community. And we clearly see this as another example of what I went through in New York when Columbia University tried to take over Morningside Park. That was a wonderful example of democracy in action. And I think if you really believe in democracy, you will deny this permit from a private white university taking over black parkland. I think it's clearly an example of not enough creativity. Can you salvage something out of this? Is it possible to salvage this? Yes. If you do something to have more play space for those two schools, that is salvaging what has happened, reducing the impact of giving parkland to a white university. I think it's a shame 20 years after, 55 years after the March on Washington, which happened last week, the 28th of August, 55 years, we're fighting on white university, taking over black land. When does it stop? When do we learn, Nashville? When do we say enough is enough? When do we listen to children in Edge Hill who say they can't use this park because it's messed up? That's a quote in the Tennessean. So what does messed up mean to a black child in Edge Hill? Messed up means I can't go up there and have fun. It's not a real wonderful, spontaneous place for a black child to go and play anymore. It is formal, it is structured, and it is reserved. I think you need to back up and realize this is nothing but another chance to take over the park. The next would be to take over the schools and take over the homes. We have to resist this kind of what I call Caucasian reinvasion. It's a terrible term, but that's exactly what's happening, y'all. If you have any sense of urban development ethos, you will not let that happen. Thank you.
Mark, is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is A.V. Long. I live in the Edge Hill area, and I'm a member of the Edge Hill Neighborhood Coalition. In lieu of a community meeting, the Rose Park Committee has been very intentional about initiating conversations throughout the neighborhood regarding this issue. Here are some of the results. Promoting Rose Park as a family-friendly park seems to be a perfect way to connect the old Edge Hill and the new Edge Hill. But it seems like Belmont wants to build walls instead of building bridges. Belmont has said the community uses the park 70% of the time and the university 30% of the time. Community youth sports officials say in real time is more like the community 30% and Belmont 70%. Youth sports officials also say there needs to be a better system for scheduling, and there should be more green space for spontaneous play and unscheduled practices. Many neighbors are concerned about parking issues. Although there are a couple of signs directing traffic, these signs are misplaced and misleading. A local church had a Family and Friends Day at the community center this past Sunday, and there was also a sports event. Many of the church members, several of which are senior citizens, had to park in the lower parking lot because the sports event attendees had already filled up the parking lot designated for community center patrons. In addition, the two parking lots on the northeast and northwest sectors were almost totally empty. Is anyone monitoring parking? Many are asking about the basketball courts. Will they be downsized? Will they be moved? And if so, moved to where? Many of us are getting very tired. We're getting tired of having to justify why we want the same things for our families as any other neighborhood would want for its families. We're getting very exhausted with having to defend over and over again what is rightfully ours. We're getting tired of our community being besieged on all sides by so many different forces. And we're becoming very dismayed with elected officials who seem to have a problem with properly addressing our concerns. So please, just do the right thing. Where is the moral compass in all of this? Nashville likes to call itself the IT city. And I guess that's okay as long as it is an IT city for all its citizens. Why not make Nashville that shining light on a hill? Why not make Nashville an international example of a place that promotes equitable access, social justice, and various opportunities for upward mobility? If we do not take the high road in this situation, people around the world will be justified when they start asking the question, what the heck is it that's going on in Nashville? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any council members here who would like to speak on this topic? Ask them to come in.
Come on in, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Berkeley Allen. The interesting thing about this is that I represent the area where Belmont sits. Councilmember Sledge represents the area where Rose Park sits, and Councilmember O'Connell represents the area where many of the constituents are. So there are a number of us. We have an at-large council member who's also been interested in this. It's an issue that covers a lot of territory, and we have worked hard looking for creative solutions. I don't know that we're there yet, but I would just like to at least explain a little bit of my perspective. I've participated in a number of the conversations that we've had on trying to look for solutions that seem to be win for everybody. I will say they've been hard and honest conversations. What I've heard the most from the constituents in the area is they would like better use of the park. Many people feel really strongly that they would love to have the community center open on Saturdays. I checked with Commissioner Odom about the possibility of opening community centers in general on Saturdays, and it's not in our budget at this point. That's not going to happen at any of the smaller community centers that this fits in the category of. Part of the conversation with Belmont has been to come up with a way to make that happen at this community center only, which to me is pretty thinking outside of the box to listen to what the concerns are. There are other concerns that you've heard that have not totally been addressed, but I feel like the after-school programs, the baseball programs, and especially making it possible to open this one center on Saturdays are a great example of a public-private partnership that often Metro tries to use to leverage our resources to get even greater benefits for the community. So I can't say that I speak for everyone here, but I hope that we can keep the conversation going so that the benefits that have been offered can be realized for the children of the park, as has been talked about, specifically the offer to provide the financial means to make it possible to have the community centers open on Saturday, as well as someone monitoring the shared use of the batting cage. I feel like those pieces have been offers made in good faith, and I would hope that part doesn't get lost in conversations on trying to get back to what will make the community happy. It's important for them to feel comfortable with this, and I don't begrudge their needs, but I hope we can continue moving forward with positive outcomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So thank you again for taking this back up. As I said at the last meeting where this was taken up, passionate, intelligent people can disagree, and I think you heard that today. But I want to echo some of the things that Councilwoman Allen had said. One of the things when I first started in this office was a lot of the constituents I talked with talked about how there used to be a lot more for children in the area to be able to do, children meaning anyway from 10 years up to teenagers, where they had after-school programs, they had sports facilities, they had leagues, they had things that they could use and play with. And I will agree, there has not been equitable access to this facility. There hasn't been equitable access since the Great Recession. And that is when our neighborhood-level community centers closed on the weekends. That's when we started limiting hours. And right now, we don't have any of those community centers open probably at some of the times they're needed most, which is on the weekend. That's the main thing. And I do want to reiterate that I was the one who brought this amendment forward. This is idea, I guess you would say, after trying to take in all sides to try and understand what might be some of the greatest priorities for the use of this facility. I know there's been conversation. I do think there need to be some screws tightened on the original Rose Park lease. I won't debate that at all, and I think we've got the opportunity through this discussion and others to do that. But I think that this is a tremendous opportunity done with community partners that you've heard from today to do more than just a facility, or even to do more than just expand hours at our existing facilities. There's an opportunity to create programming that used to be in this neighborhood, that used to be available to the children who are growing up in Edge Hill and the surrounding areas. And I think that the way that we're going to be able to do that is through this partnership. A side note, but related, at 1:30 this morning, I got the text that the community benefits agreement had been agreed upon regarding the fairgrounds and Stand Up Nashville and Nashville Soccer Holdings. That is an example of the kinds of partnerships that we need to be looking for more in this city, where when we don't have the resources, or when our resources, quite frankly, are being outstripped by our growth, that we are doing something in a way that's going to benefit those who sometimes have been left behind or have not been able to receive that equitable access. While I don't think this conversation is by any means over, and I want to continue having this conversation and growing those partnerships, I think this is that opportunity. There's been a lot of community discussion with leaders to say, look, nothing's perfect, but can we get to a point where we can have something that does benefit the people who we should be serving around this area, which are the children who are using this park? I think this helps in that, and I would ask for your support. Thanks.
Councilman Cooper?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Boy, imagine a land deal being controversial in Nashville today. I'm just surprised. I'm here, first of all, in embarrassment because I was the sponsor, technically the sponsor of the original bill, and ultimately, I think with the due diligence of the community, it is revealed that the appendix and the bill were very different. And so I appreciate my other two sponsors on the bill, which were Council Lady Allen and Sledge, kind of formally saying that profoundly needs to be corrected, that process wasn't right. And I want to quickly just say I appreciate everybody working so hard to improve what was. We've certainly come a long way from what was in the appendix of the original bill, even though the rest of the bill, which spoke of a batting cage abutting the ball field, and it ended up being a standalone building. We've come a long way from that. But process is questioned, and we're in a time, unfortunately, of cynicism. So going slow, really working again. I know people have been valiant in their efforts, and if I can just cheerlead to have everybody stay at it, and the reward is to bring a big inclusive vision to Rose Park. And that's a great thing to strive for, but of course, as we know, it's not going to be easy. Thank you all so much for being here.
Are there any other council members who would like to speak? What do you say? No? Okay. All right, so now we'll take up the matter. I did have one question, John, on the percentage of usage. I'm sorry. Former council members here? Okay.
Yes.
Please.
If I might, just
Sure.
a minute. I was the councilman. My name is Ronnie Greer. I was the councilman in the 17th district when this issue first became a problem, a circumstance for the city. And I've listened to everything everyone has said here, and I will say this. The benefit to having this facility on the campus would be that the kids at Rose Park who might think they want to play baseball, they can learn whether or not they can hit a curved ball. They can do it right there. And if they should accidentally get hit in the arm with the ball, then there's a facility or there's an opportunity to be treated right there. I know that I only got a short period of time, maybe 1 year, to play baseball because they only brought it into the neighborhood after I turned 13. But because I had just turned 13 and the season started, I got the chance to at least, try out for the team. And hitting was the biggest drawback for the kids because we never really had to stand before anybody who could throw a fastball, 75, 85 miles an hour. And so having that batting cage there for the kids who will eventually, and we hope that with RBI and the boys, which is the organization I'm a part of, that we can get the kids in there. And then they will learn, the hardest part about baseball is learn how to hit the ball, not bailing out when the curveball looks like it's going to hit you. So I would ask your support for this project, if you would. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say also, Belmont has, and I think everybody in the Parks Department and Parks Board would agree, has been a great partner in this up to this point, and that should be noted, and we appreciate that. So this one matter should not take away from a really great partnership. So I think that needs to be said. I do want to go back to a question. I was curious about the percentage usage, neighborhood versus Belmont, because we heard one fact that I don't know what, if you have record.
I'm not sure what number she was using, but, and I don't have the forms right in front of me, but the total, what we do is we compute it on total usable hours, and Belmont uses, on the soccer field, they would use soccer and baseball somewhere between 15 and 18%, and we program and reserve for the general public about that same amount, and then there's probably close to 70% that's not programmable at all. It's just time that anybody could go out there and lay out there in the turf, or go out there and throw a ball, or do whatever they want to do. So the programmable time is about 30 to 35%, and the rest it's just open to the public to do whatever they want to do.
So open it to the board for discussion.
So, I've got a question for Councilman Sledge.
Yes.
At the July meeting when we deferred it, the commitment was made to have another community meeting. And most of the email correspondence we've received, that meeting has not been held. So can you explain that?
Sure. We did have a smaller community meeting with several folks you see in this room. That was Belmont, that was leaders of the Edge Hill Neighborhood Coalition, and then it was myself. At that point, we had talked more about the terms. It centered primarily, I will tell you, on the second floor. At that point, we were going to have more discussions, and then pretty much everyone who's in here right now has been working on the conservation overlay as well. That has taken, I would say, a huge chunk of the time of talking through with the neighborhood, and we've had more meetings and conversations on that. So I will tell you, we had the smaller, what I would call leadership meeting. We have not had a broad, huge community meeting on it because, again, primarily the conversations we've been having on Edge Hill have been about the neighborhood conservation overlay.
Okay.
So what was decided on the second floor? Because that was an issue when we talked about that 2 months ago.
I can't say that there's been any real compromise or decision, to be quite frank. I think that there are members who of the coalition who definitely do not want to see it, or if it's there, that it is totally open, available for public use in some way of programming. I think what I've heard from Belmont is that that floor would primarily be used for training / rehab space.
I'd like to hear what, I think it's really important on the second floor what public access there is.
Well, can we also go back to what was approved previously? Was it a two-story structure or not?
It was a two.
It was.
It was.
It was. I reread it this weekend.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak to
The original,
Yeah.
Amendment 2.
I can answer the question. Jason Rogers, Belmont University. As Councilman Sledge has indicated, the second floor space in the context of the existing amendment references training, meeting, and office space. Training in the sense of the opportunity to treat injuries, to take folks up, to change clothes before games and practices, things like that. The issue of the second floor space is a question of a detail to be worked out with the staff, as we have worked out many thousands of details through the years. What we would envision is the potential to have meeting space that is slated for somewhere on the second floor, available for use by teams and organizations from the community that are part of the baseball program, and/or where it can't be accommodated in the Easley Center, the opportunity for folks to come over from the Easley Center. That's a plan that is, the actual planning of the space in flux right now, and it would provide an opportunity for meeting space up there if there are teams who need to use it to learn some fundamentals in a classroom sort of conference room setting, or to have team meetings and that sort of thing.
Director, how long is the current lease agreement with Belmont at the park?
40 years.
40 years. And
40.
Who will pay the maintenance and repair costs for this physical structure?
Belmont.
For the life of the lease?
Yes.
That's all my questions.
Will it be a new lease, just specifically for this structure, or it'll be
An amendment.
Amendment to it.
Amendment to it. So additional.
Will there be any public meetings for the Edge Hill community, large public meetings, which I understand have not happened yet? Is that in the planning stage? Is that under consideration?
Yes, it absolutely is. As you all know, this goes through three readings of council. There is still a lot, quite frankly, to discuss. The conservation overlay is on third and final reading tonight, and if that does go through, Councilman O'Connell and I have actually committed to some neighbors that we're working on some guideline revisions right now, so there will be some things we'll continue to work on, but we will regain some, quite frankly, time and capacity to be able to do those things.
And for sure, the community center will be open on Saturdays if we were to pass this. Right?
That is included in the amendment.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
It's
That's a
included
big
in the
point.
amendment. If it passes council, yes.
But can I just clarify that point? Is it open all day, or is it open for a portion of the day? If the community center.
Normal neighborhood community centers are not open at all on Saturdays. So this Amendment 3 proposes opening Easley Center from 8 until 12 on Saturdays, and that would be with a grant.
4 hours.
4 hours. And that's consistent with regional community centers that are open from 8 to 12.
8 to 12.
Yeah.
So to the staff, if you think about where Belmont was 40 years ago and where they may be 30 years from now when the lease ends, they're probably going to outgrow this lease and this facility. What happens when Belmont decides to go build their own baseball stadium and we're left with a 2-story batting cage? Is that something we need to worry about? Is that something we need to embrace in the middle of this lease agreement?
I had not, that's a good question. I had not foreseen that should, it would become a Metro Parks facility. My concern in that case, as it always is with funding and being able to maintain hours and staffing and operations to the community like we should. I'm not sure what Belmont's position is on future intention.
We plan to be there for the duration of the lease, which is another 33 years, I think, with the improvements having opened in the spring of 2011. So, yeah, 33 years or so. The other piece I'd like to clarify is that once the facility is complete, it will belong to Metro Parks.
Right.
That's the way the lease is set up.
Right.
So it won't be deeded or anything like that at a later point in time. It's on Metro Parks land. It is owned by Metro Parks, and Metro Parks has ultimate control.
And I guess question for legal counsel, if 20 years in they have to move because the program's grown so much, we're going to have a lease agreement that binds Belmont to pay the cost, operate it as if they were there. Is that correct?
Correct. And to be clear, this building, well, a slightly smaller version, an 80 by 120-foot building, has already been approved by the Parks Board and by the Metro Council. So if you all don't approve this, they still ultimately have the authority to build a 2-story building. This is just moving
That's an important point.
the
Go
location.
ahead and build it. It's just a location change. And I think out of this process, we're going to get Saturday hours and some other things out of it. That's the way to look at it. And it has to still go through council, right?
Correct.
And in that process, there'll be more community discussion. I kept hearing our council representatives talk about we need to continue this conversation. And so I want to understand, is that with us or is that with the community at large?
Should be with the community.
So Colby, can you speak to that? Because I think we were a little taken
Everybody
back.
said it.
No, I think that's fair.
And the community
again,
meeting part was kind of what we agreed on, and
Sure.
it's not happening.
No, and I'm just being totally frank with the Parks Board. There weren't enough hours in the day. We had a deferral, an unanticipated deferral on the conservation overlay that required additional work, and I will be very frank with all of you, our council colleagues hold us very accountable for community meetings, and we had several of them come up to us during the conservation overlay public hearing, making sure that we were having and we're continuing to have community meetings and conversations.
So can you commit like within a certain amount of time?
Sure. I mean, I would be willing, what's today, the 4th? I'd be willing to say by mid-October that we will have had that community meeting. So by October 15th, I guess is the best way to say it.
Michelle?
On both sides of this issue are persons that I highly respect, that I've worked with over the years, even working in metropolitan government. And it pains me that a community meeting has not been held. It pains me. You're one of my students. You know this.
Alumnus, but yes.
I am in favor of deferring this action. And I'm not making a motion here, I'm just speaking. I'm in favor of deferring this decision for 2 meetings because it's very important to me, again, that every voice that wants to be heard in this process is heard. Every voice that wants to be heard in this process is heard. I've heard from persons who are very much in favor of it, who have children who could benefit from the batting facility, from the opportunity. I've heard persons who are against it. Who want green space. Everyone loves the park. Everyone wants to use the park, but we need to hear from all persons who want to be heard. The emails that we've received have asked for deferral. I think that's fair. We've also asked just to be against it. Okay? I work for PWI as well. It is very important for that partnership for the university and the community to be talking to each other. And so when the touch is made to have those community meetings, that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, to ensure that everyone who wants to be heard can be heard. I don't know how you reach out to community for meetings, but go beyond that. If you have to knock on doors and say, we're having a meeting today, that needs to happen. Because there are persons who don't have email, there are persons who don't have phone service, there are persons who can't even be here at this meeting who want a voice in this decision. And I would ask that every effort be made to make sure that that happens. And I think 2 months is a good time period to make sure it happens. I'm sorry.
I'm going to agree with Michelle. 10 years ago, we had some community meetings that I think we solved a lot of the issues that were confronting us. And I think this is the proper way to go about it, to get a meeting of the minds, to try to do something that's going to be satisfactory to everyone. But most important, the thing that's going to be best for the children. And I think you do that by getting your minds together and everybody laying out what they feel and think and realistically coming up with something that's workable. And there's no reason that with the people we've got in here and the ones that couldn't be here today couldn't do this. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, I hear you, and I'm all about input. It sounds to me like there's going to be opportunity for input beyond the parks decision, and I'm wondering what's stopping us as a parks from saying, okay, if the community, we can take that community conversation to the city level, to the council. Is there a reason to defer it? If in fact it will be built one place or another, which is what I think I was hearing.
Right.
What is stopping us
from acting
in that way?
And is it fair to say that we sort of created our own problem because of the Greer Stadium batting cage?
Well, that's another yes.
Being
that's
demolished, that we've put Belmont in a difficult position. Is that fair? So I happen to agree with Terry. I think the time for more, even though I'm disappointed it didn't happen last month.
I'm very disappointed about that as well.
I think the time for community meetings can happen between this board's decision and council action. And if we can get your commitment to make sure that happens between now and when the council hears this, then I would rather go ahead and vote today.
I mean, it sounds like it won't go through council without community input.
And if it helps the board, this will come obviously to us as council. I'm happy not to file it until we have a community meeting. So that way it's not even going through first reading. We'll have that community meeting before it's even filed. And I will commit that to the board and to the constituents.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, when I was saying I would defer to just one meeting, where we have a meeting or council, a meeting of everyone that wants to come. And I would suggest doing it, could we do it at the school itself or there at the community center?
I'm sure we could request space. Sure.
And give everyone a chance to come in and speak and let the people lay out what we're doing and what the plan is. I think some of them don't totally understand it.
And I think the councilman should have the public meeting, not the parks.
Oh, it's fine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But I think some of us would be there.
No, yeah, of course.
So, that'd be my suggestion, just delay it at one meeting.
Any other thoughts?
Before we do that, we asked Belmont in July about the impact on their timeline.
Oh, yeah.
So with a one meeting deferral and with council readings, my sense is Belmont wants this up and running prior to spring baseball. Is that fair, Belmont?
At this point in time, the earliest could be spring of 2020. So just
So
like
you're
in
saying
July,
one meeting deferral is not going to hurt you?
No, just like in July, every week counts because it takes a long time to get a permit application through the process, as busy as they are right now. The other thing I would add is there was a community meeting on this in June of 2017 that Councilman Sledge hosted. Maybe many people have forgotten about that. And out of that community meeting came an appointed group of people, many of whom you have heard from today or heard about today. And we have had at least 5 meetings since that community meeting in June of 2017 to discuss this project. I think the amount of talking that has been done has been productive in some respects. In other respects, it's not been very productive. And I think it's not been very productive because many members of the people who oppose this project don't believe Belmont should be at Rose Park at all. Don't believe that there should be a baseball field at Rose Park. They want it just totally unprogrammed green space. As I said to you last time I was here, that's not consistent with the Metro Parks master plan that refers to Rose Park as a community park for intensive athletic recreational use. So we think there's been plenty of opportunities for input. I strongly encourage the board to go ahead and take action and approve this. We will cooperate with the council people to get it through the council process, with the staff, with the neighbors who are wanting to act together with us to fulfill the purposes of Rose Park and make this into something that can be good for everyone.
I agree with the idea of deferring, and I do have concerns about deferring only one meeting because I think there has been enough concerns with a lot of people feeling that they haven't had access to community meetings and opportunities to voice their positions. So I think that to just defer one meeting doesn't allow enough time for those processes to take place.
Any other comments? We can't open the floor to, again. I don't think we should lose sight that we've already passed this, and I think, Jeff, you're right. We kind of caused our own problem a little bit, and we have deferred. I'll just make that comment. So, I mean, we kind of are where we are, and they can build a building tomorrow. It's already been approved at another site, and, we're getting some good things out of this process for the parks in general, so.
Well, may I make a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to move that we approve this amendment. Is that what it is? I don't know if I'm saying this right. Yeah. So we approve this amendment knowing that community conversation will happen through the council process.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can I amend
You can amend
motion?
my amendment.
Yeah.
Instead of saying knowing that
Okay.
additional conversation will be had, I think that we should request per the amendment that Councilman Sledge host a community meeting, that we notice everyone as we would in any other public meeting prior to him filing the legislation.
Yes. Great.
Yeah.
But by we, we're talking, for the community meeting, we're talking about the council.
The council
Yes.
process.
Right.
So this is the way you want to file it?
Yeah, if you can piece that together.
Can we restate it?
Did you get it?
Do you have it, Janet?
Affirm amendment with Councilmember Sledge hosting a community meeting.
Prior to
filing council
the
legislation.
Right.
Yes,
So
that's correct.
So we have an amendment and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting this amendment, the amended amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So 2 opposed. The motion carries. All right, moving on. We're moving on to the consent agenda. If there's no, we haven't done. I'll accept a motion to approve the entire consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda carries. Moving on to new business. 091803, Mr. Scott Tigert, representing the West Nashville Sports League, requests permission for Tennessee Picnic and Party Company to operate a zip line on Saturday, September 8th, 2018, for the opening day of fall flag football and baseball at Edwin Warner Park. John Holmes, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, sir. This is something that apparently they've done in years past, and we notified them that this required park board approval. We were notified that any funds raised from this endeavor, it's basically just a celebration of the first day of baseball. And just instead of a carnival, which is against park policy, they're doing this.
So you suggest we approve it?
We support this, yes, sir.
Motion for approval? So moved. Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. 091804, staff requests board approval for acquisition of 2 parcels of land known as the Charles Smith property, totaling approximately 54 acres for future expansion of the Stones River Greenway and Ravenwood Park. Cindy?
Staff asked that we defer that to the acquisition.
We will defer that to acquisition next meeting. All right. 091805, Parks Board to reconsider current arrangement agreement with Cheekwood. Our patient Cheekwood group has been sitting back there in the back wall. Just a little background, and I didn't put much description here because it's a little bit complicated. So Cheekwood, this goes back many, many decades, has been on park land where the entrance is, as we all know. And Cheekwood has become much more popular than it used to be, so there's lots of traffic and parking concern there. And we've allowed Cheekwood to use the slash dump there for overflow parking at times. We've worked with past chairs, current chairs, and the director, and in 2015 came up with an agreement to and Cheekwood acknowledges it's their parking problem, not Park's parking problem. Let me just say that. But it's a long-standing relationship. But having said that, it's time that Cheekwood address their parking problem. So in 2015, we came up with an agreement where the rent would double every month, every year. So now we're up to $4,000 a month. We tried with the past chair to come up with a parking solution. It got diverted, not by anybody's fault. It just did. But in all fairness, they really tried to make it work. And just with change of administrations and all things that have gone on, it kind of fell off the radar screen. What I would like for y'all, everyone to consider in this room is I want to extend the agreement one more year. So that gives y'all 3 years. Freeze the $4,000 a month, which is a lot of money they're paying us every month to use the parking. But by the end of this year, and I'm hoping November meeting, y'all need to come to us with a parking solution. We're not going to kick the can down the road anymore. And if you don't have one by the end of the year, there's no parking at the slash dump. So that gives y'all an incentive to come up with a plan that we all agree on and we pass as a board. And in that way, in 3 years, hopefully you can have that plan implemented. But we can't continue using parkland for parking because everybody in Nashville wants to do that. So we've had such a long relationship doing it, we feel like we need to kind of wean y'all off of it. So I'm asking the park board to extend the current agreement 1 year and freeze the $4,000 a month because the next year it does become very, very costly to them, and they're great neighbors and supporters of the park. So that's what I would like for everyone to consider.
Does that $4,000 per month amount go straight to that park, or does it go into a general fund?
It goes to the Friends group, so it goes directly to that park.
Okay. Is that acceptable to Cheekwood?
One question.
Jane, come up.
I'm Jane McLeod, President and CEO of Cheekwood. One question. If we make a presentation of a parking plan in November and we haven't all agreed on it, does that mean we do not have use of the slash dump this December when we are doing holiday lights?
No. What I'm saying is by the end of I'm suggesting, the board can do whatever they want to do. I'm suggesting by December 31, 2018, there is a plan that the board has approved, and we're all in agreement that's going to happen. And there's movement in the next 3 years of getting to that point. It's just not, yes, we're going to do this in 3 years.
Got
so
it.
we want to see true movement of fixing this parking issue.
Got it. Okay.
But I'm hoping to come in November just in case we need to come back together in December and have further discussion. It gives you a little wiggle room.
So in the 1 year extension, what is the actual date of that year?
So what would that be? 2021, I think.
Is it?
I think it's 2000. Is
I
that
thought
right?
you said 1 year from now.
No, 1 year from, extend the agreement 1 year.
This agreement
2021?
is, I don't
It's
know.
2021.
How is that even?
It's in a letter here that was written in 2015.
So it was in 2015, there was an agreement for 5 years, and you're saying extend it 1 more year?
Yeah, this is given to the end of 2021 because there's great expense at this, like a lot of money, and it's a big deal. It's not something you can do overnight.
It was in the conversation.
Yeah.
Double for a period of 5 years.
You see that now?
And it started
15.
in January 2016?
Yeah.
No.
15.
What month?
June.
Okay. So it's basically fiscal year, July. Probably starting in July.
So would anyone like to, any discussion on this?
So
We can
I'm
defer to me.
sorry, but
That's
this
fine.
was not very clear to me.
I know.
So sorry to be dense, but so you're suggesting that we extend the agreement, we freeze the fee to $4,000 a month
Right.
until June 2022.
To December 2021. It started in 15 for 5 years.
But it started in July.
Okay, July. End of June or July. We can.
Okay.
Yeah, because it goes to 20. So I'm saying go to 20. Go to the.
20. Okay.
Extend it.
All right.
Extend it
Gotcha.
Extend it
Okay.
1 year to whatever it is. June. Last day of June, July 1 of 2021. Freeze the fee, and this gives the board incentive to take care of a very costly problem. I mean, it's just not a great thing.
Okay. I'm with you.
Would you like to make that motion?
No. I'll vote for it.
I'll make a motion to freeze the fee and extend the lease or the agreement for an additional year.
Subject to a parking plan being in place by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you. Subject to the...
Second. That's the easier part.
Okay, there you go. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. All right. All right, special presentations today. All right, who wants to do your recognize? John, you got a special presentation.
I do.
To give us.
This is really a cool one. As I think all of you know, the Special Olympics 2018 U.S. Games were held in Seattle, Washington in July. Nashville had 19 athletes, unified partners, and coaches selected to attend, and they all had ties to our Metro Parks Disabilities program. They are, not all, but some of them are here today with us. And I'm going to ask each of them to stand as I announce your accomplishments as we went along. Kiki Hines participates in the day program in sports leagues and competed in track and field. She brought home 3 gold medals, and a fourth place finish. Congratulations. Rachel Johnson, who's not here, participates in the Young Adult Summer Program, competed in bocce ball. She brought home a silver medal, a fourth place finish, and a seventh place finish. Michelle Greenway participates in our day program in sports, competed in powerlifting, and she brought home a fourth place finish and 2 participation awards. Unified sports are an integral part of Special Olympics and the Inclusion Program. Unified sports bring together athletes with intellectual and developmental disabilities and peers without to play together in a team sport. It's a tremendous way to bring athletes together to build social bonds, create lasting friendships, and showcase the abilities of athletes with all backgrounds. Tracy Griffin participates in our sports program and competed with his father, Don, in the unified golf. They brought home a 5th place finish. Tracy's not here today. The Metro Disabilities Unified Volleyball Team is the 2-time defending Special Olympics Tennessee gold medal winners. They traveled to Seattle and again brought home gold medals. The volleyball team members are Kenny Carpenter, who participates in both our day program and the sports league, is also a part-time employee at the Sportsplex Ice Rink. Ryan Cate participates in the sports program. He's not here. Kevin Evans participates in the sports program. Patricia Costu. Thank you. Sorry about that. Josh Putman participates in the day program in the sports league. Gideon Weigel participates in the sports league. Glenn Atkins has been participating in Special Olympics for 15 years, is the program coordinator for the Disabilities program, and is one outstanding human being. Jessica Atkins, his wife, has been playing unified sports for over 20 years and is a special education teacher for Metro Public Schools. Brandon Cole has been playing unified for 5 years and is a nurse practitioner. These are the folks that are not here. Michael Fox has been playing for over 20 years. Shayna Fox has been playing unified for over 20 years as a nurse practitioner and is completing her doctorate of nursing this fall. And most importantly, the coaches were Kay Putman, a part-time employee with the Disabilities program, and Jeanette Carpenter, the president of Friends of Metro Parks Disabilities. Just a really outstanding group of people who I think had a wonderful experience, and I want to thank all of you for all you did. Good job.
Thank you, John. All right, one more special presentation today. Mr. Steve Hinkley, President and CEO of Adventure Science Center, to make presentation to the board. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Steve Hinkley, I'm the President and CEO of the Adventure Science Center. I've been here in Nashville for a little bit over a year now, having relocated from Santa Barbara, California, where I worked with the Science Center there and got that museum started up out of the ground. Then once it launched, I found myself transitioning out here to Nashville. So we've enjoyed becoming part of the community, and I'm very proud to be a part of an organization that certainly works in partnership with the Parks Department. And so what I'd love to share with you today is a little bit about where we are headed for the long term, but then also provide a few, some short-term projects that we're working on, one of which I think will be of distinct interest, especially given a lot of the topic of conversation today. So I wanted to share with you what our new vision for the Adventure Science Center is. It's a 4-part piece that we go around constantly and are talking about. The first part is to be the best science museum in the world for visitors of all ages. We have done a great job of serving this community, especially for families with very young children, but our time to move that audience to a very, very different demographic has arrived. There are a number of populations that have been underrepresented and underserved by the Adventure Science Center. Sometimes that's age-related, but sometimes it's also community-related. So a big initiative for us over these next several years will be to make sure that we are as open and accessible and as equitable as possible possible, but also recognizing that science, meaning curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and confidence, are not restricted to young children. These are things that we never should grow out of as we grow old. And so we are a science museum that is moving in the direction of making sure that we attract an audience that, as we define it, is pre-K to gray, by the way. We do let people put themselves in that spectrum wherever they feel comfortable. We also want to be the must-see destination for Nashville and Tennessee. We want to make sure that we are not just great science museum for Nashville, but also for Tennessee and this large region that we serve, which also then goes to the next point, is that we want to serve as a regional hub for science and innovation. And what that means for us is getting off of our campus, is getting out of our building and making collaborative partnerships with organizations. I was just at Oak Ridge National Laboratories last week. We're starting to get out off of our hill to really establish relationships with science and technology centers, with universities, with research organizations, with a number of different other nonprofits that ultimately bring their stories into the Adventure Science Center, so that for the families who live here in this community and want to come and visit the Adventure Science Center, we're helping them understand where science is around them at all times. And for the 15.5 million people that visit this community every year, we're helping them understand what Nashville and Middle Tennessee and this region are about. And we're proud of that. And we want to celebrate what we do in terms of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And then the last part is to inspire the next generation of creative and confident problem solvers. We do a tremendous amount of work with the city, with particularly Metro Nashville Public Schools, working with their teachers as well as their students. We see tens of thousands of their kids every year through our doors. We are here to help make sure that they become that next great generation of problem solvers. And so we do a huge amount of work working with those schools. Our projected timeline, when I was hired at the Adventure Science Center, was with the understanding that over time we would transform ourselves into a new vision. Now that we have started to broadly define that, we're having to put a timeline to that so that we can begin making progress. We've formed a long-range planning committee. Over the next couple of years, we will revisit a master plan that was completed in 2015 and not executed. We will build off of that master plan to then figure out how that fits in with the new vision for the Adventure Science Center. That planning process will take a couple of years. In the interim time, there are two specific projects, and I'll share a few details of those with you today, that we will be developing. The first one will launch in summer of 2019, which is a Science of Sound and Music exhibit, which of course works really well for Music City, called Soundbox. That is something that we are developing in collaboration with a exhibit design and development partner. It is unique to us. It is the only one of its kind that will exist in the world, and it will be here in Nashville. And it will talk about music and science in a way that no one has done before, and will be something that is super cool that we can all be very proud of. In 2021, our plan is to launch another major exhibition, and at that point, feel that we're in a good place in terms of having the right ideas, the right vision, the right community behind us, the right staff, and the right board, ultimately to give the green light to a full capital campaign that will ultimately see a transformation of our site, and then a grand opening and relaunch. The time frame to get all of that done is somewhere between 8 to 10 years, so it will be a very busy time for us. It already is, as we've started a lot of that internal restructuring so that we can get ready for all of these different pieces that are coming. So as I shared with you, the first step in all of this transformation is the new exhibit Soundbox. That exhibit will open summer of 2019. It's a 2,500 square foot immersive, hands-on, interactive space that's all about learning through collaborative play. 14 to 15 different interactive exhibits will be developed for the interior of this space. We now have those defined, and we'll begin that construction. Actually, it started yesterday, so September 3rd was the beginning of the fabrication process for this exhibit. The planned launch is June of 2019. The total cost of the project is $1.8 million, which we are funding through capital raise that is ongoing. We have currently $1.4 million of that raised, with another $400,000 left to go. We also, as a part of this project, will relocate and expand our innovation incubator. This is our maker space inside the Science Center. If you've had a chance to come and play with the 3D printers or the laser cutters, that's our innovation incubator. It currently sits at about 3 to 400 square feet within our facility. It will relocate to the first floor and quadruple in size to about 1,500 square feet, allowing us to work with school groups inside the space, but also have many more people have access to those kinds of tools that they don't typically see in their everyday life, unless, of course, you have a 3D printer at home, which maybe Some of you do. A couple of quick graphics. This is essentially what the exhibit will look like. And again, these are the designs that we've worked with this company, and these are exhibits that will exist nowhere else. The particular exhibit that you're seeing right here is an opportunity for you to speak into a microphone, and a laser pointing at a speaker. As the speaker vibrates, it creates a geometric pattern, helping to understand that relationship between math, geometry, as well as sound and the physics of sound. The floor plan looks like this. This is the 2,500 square feet. Again, 14 to 15 different interactives in and around that space. The Soundbox logo down here, that's actually an interactive logo. These are lights projected from the roof, or from the ceiling rather. As you walk through each of the different letters, a different tone is generated, and it's corresponding not only to the fact that you've moved through that light beam, but the height of the individual determines the volume of that particular piece. So as you crouch down, it gets quieter. As you stand up and raise your hands in the air, it gets a little bit louder. So guests can collaborate and make music together with one another. This is a technology-driven piece, so one day it could be bird songs that you're playing. Another day you might stand in an 8-track recording with each letter representing a track. So you could stand in the X, and you're hearing the distinct vocal track of a popular recording, and then someone goes and stands in the B, and the guitar is layered over that, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes a very dynamic piece that we can change over and over and over. So I mentioned there's something on the heels of that, and I don't know if my timing today just happened to work out, but step 2 for us, the next exhibit that we want to start developing, and this is where you all become obviously intimately involved, we want to create a park. We are on Parks property. We believe that we want to create access to science and technology, engineering, arts, and math for everybody. We know that regardless of the work that we do to make sure that we can fundraise, to subsidize memberships, to subsidize school visits, and to subsidize public tickets, many people don't have access to us. So one of the things that we want to do is partly to resolve that, but also partly to begin moving outside of our physical building, is to explore space on the property that we currently have in a lease agreement with you all to develop up to a 53,000 square foot science, music, and art park. The key objectives of this, as you can see, provide experiences that foster creativity, collaboration, confidence, and curiosity. It also is a way for us to activate the outdoor campus in a way that we've never done before, as well as increase public park space. We want to provide a community park unlike anything else that's accessible to families throughout the community, certainly within our neighborhood. We also want to connect physical activity with learning, and then we also want to establish St. Cloud as a third place. This idea of third place as a space where families and other groups come to create community, where they spend their time as they relax and as they get to know one another, and also enjoy playing with exhibits around science, music, and art so they can learn together. This is what we want to create. We want to be that place when people have spare time and they want to get out of their homes, they come and spend time with us because we're a great place to be and we're a great place for families. Some of the themes that have started to float to the surface, we have yet to go into all of the development around this, are physics around motion, sound, and light, as well as music, making, and also climbing and active play. I'll show just a few of the ideas that are floating to the surface specifically around some of the exhibits in just a moment. So this is the area that we're currently exploring outside of our facility. So our building exists right here. It's a 110,000 square foot facility. This is a 53,000 square foot outlay. It's a nearly level piece of property. We're currently going through the process to understand what that site can hold. We also, of course, as we've been observers to what happened on the other side of St. Cloud Hill over the last year, we're spending time to make sure that the due diligence and understanding what is under that ground are things that don't prohibit us from going forward with developing this. So all of that is coming in the works, and I'll share a quick timeline with you coming up towards the end of this presentation. But this is the space that we're looking at creating, 53,000 square feet. Again, publicly accessible park space that would be oriented around science, music, and art. Some of the ideas around exhibits are hands-on physics interactive pieces where you can come and build and learn and explore, as well as a musical swing set, which is an extremely cool thing if you're familiar with these types of ideas. Very, very, very fun, as well as community music making exhibits that allow people to come and play at any time. We are open 363 days of the year, but we aren't open after 5 p.m. typically to families, and we aren't open usually before 10 a.m. If any of you have young children or have had young children in the past, you know that by 7:30, 8 o'clock, if you're lucky, they're ready to go, and we're not open yet. So this is an opportunity for us to be accessible to those families every single morning, early in the morning, as well as beyond the 5 p.m. hours when our indoor exhibits are closed. This becomes and remains an open space for them to learn and play and explore. And again, it turns park property back over to the purpose for which it was served, but also combines the science and technology side that is our mission and dovetails that perfectly with what the mission of the parks is intended to do. And then, of course, some very fun, cool, physical, interactive pieces, because sometimes you just need to burn the energy out, whether you're 5-year-old or 95-year-old. Our projected timeline for this is to spend this fall going through the feasibility studies of the project to really understand, as I said, not only the technical aspects of the property that we're exploring, but also some of the original designs, and then certainly working with you all to understand what you would need to see and how we can work with you in order to make sure that this is a project that works well for the purpose that it's intended for. This is also an opportunity for us to make friends with our neighbors and to reach out to the communities immediately surrounding us, to involve them in the conversation. One of the things that we did with Soundbox was we created a community input group. This is about 25 people from throughout Nashville and Middle Tennessee who have helped to inform and shape the ideas that exhibit will be, thus making it a genuinely community-oriented and community partnership project. This will follow that same model. We will involve the conversation from our neighbors to help them understand what we're looking to build, but also to understand what they want and what they need to see from this particular project. Spring of 2019, we'd like to be able to finalize a budget and a plan and work to understand what approval from you all could look like. And then also get our executive committee to sign on board with that. Summer 2019 to spring 2021, that's the full development of this project, and then the proposed grand opening would be sometime in the summer of 2021. So, thank you for letting me take probably more of the time than I was allotted, but this is an exciting idea, and this is something that we absolutely want to work on. And having listened to the conversation from the first agenda item, this is an opportunity to solve some of those challenges. It's an opportunity to work with those same neighbors that are concerned about the loss of, or the potential loss of, public park property. This is 0.9 miles. I did a quick little search while I was standing in back. It's 0.9 miles from Rose Park. This is a very walkable space from those areas, and for the people who are concerned about what's happening in their neighborhood, we share that concern, and we want to help them build something and create something that is truly accessible for all to make sure that the mission that we have, as well as the mission of the parks, is served very, very well. So I appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Sounds great.
I would encourage you to get with the Parks Department sooner than later about this idea, because there's a lot to it, obviously, a park within a park. So we just got to make sure we don't get off on a tangent or they'll do too much work until everything's in sync. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, in fact, actually, the reason I'm here today is because I had mentioned this briefly to Monique probably 3 months ago, and this was, I think, the first opportunity to get on the agenda. So we'll move quickly, but yeah, we'll do the due diligence.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
And George, I serve as your liaison to
That's right.
Adventure Science. I attend all the meetings, and they're thinking through it, and so we'll be sure to keep you apprised.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm glad you brought that up because we have new liaisons also. They
Yeah,
should be
thank
in
you.
front of you. So, all right. Capital projects, Tim, just some highlights that you...
Yeah, I'll just hit on 3 of them. Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation notified us that we have been the recipient of a $500,000 LPRF grant for Atafama Archaeological Park. So the Friends organization is going to directly fund design of this Phase 1 project, and then the grant funds will be for implementation. Goodlettsville, new park in that location. Construction is finally underway on that. And then for the Jefferson Street Pocket Park, we had our first public meeting last week. It went very well. Lots of really good, thoughtful input from the community. So we're moving forward on that. We'll have a second public meeting on that in October, and we'll have a date for you at the next meeting.
Any update on the deconstruction of Greer Stadium?
Not at this point. Nothing to report. It is in the procurement process. Buyers have been assigned to the project, both for the archaeological component and the deconstruction piece as well. So,
we're hoping this year.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Jackie is not here today. Jim, I think you're going to give the update.
Yeah, Jackie should have provided you all with the calendar of events, and so look through that. I'll just mention real quickly several, and if you want more information, you can call Monique or Jackie or I, and we'll be happy to help you. September 6th is the beginning of the Conservancy September Sundown Music Series on Thursday nights, which they're moving from the weekend to Thursday, so we're excited about them working with us on that. That'll be every Thursday in September. Then the Cornelia Fort Picking Party hosted by the Friends of Shelby, which is September 15th. The dinner by the bridge, the Greenway's fundraiser, is on September 27th at Cumberland Park. And then on September 28th, the Friends of Warner Park Full Moon Picking Party is happening. So anybody wants more information on that, just let me know.
All right. Any other department updates today?
No.
All right. Report of the director.
Just very quickly, I'd like to say thank you to everybody in the department who has worked hard to make the department successful and to continue to provide the programs and services to the community. As you all may recall, we, along with other Metro departments, received savings targets for this fiscal year. And our department is already very leanly staffed and funded very leanly, and those savings targets really impact us severely. And so we are going to continue to do the best we can with what we have, but I wanted to just continue to remind you of those targets, and we are realizing those savings through salary savings. So it's in essence a hiring freeze. We have been working with the finance department to request those positions that are critical to our operations, but with already a lean operation here, any positions that we have are essentially critical, but we are doing the best we can. Just wanted to remind you all of that. Say thank you to everyone in the department. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.